Hello, everybody. This is Chris McCabe of e-commerce. Chris, once again, speaking with Emma Schermer Tamir, who most recently was one of the speakers at our Seller Velocity conference. We got a lot of positive feedback, glowing comments about her. You actually did you do 3 talks for us or 2? I lost count.
Well, I did a lightning talk, and then I did 2 back-to-back
Right.
in-depth talks. So I would say, I guess 3.
I think it was a total of 3, and I'm hoping you got some good questions when you were finished speaking. I didn't hear all of your Q&A because I was running around, but I heard most of your talk.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really great about the Seller Velocity conference that you put on is that it does, first of all, everybody in attendance is pretty high level, so it allows for interesting, deeper conversations. But additionally, because of the more intimate nature of the event, you do have the opportunity to go in depth in a way that is not feasible when you're at a very large event. So my goal with my talks was, yes, provide lots of great content, but also really create space for people to have an opportunity to ask questions and take the session in the direction that was going to be most valuable for them.
Yeah. And you were very flexible with the format. And I like your agility, kind of, if we throw you some curveballs, you know how to hit them.
I do play set with my dogs.
That's right.
That's right. But I guess maybe watching and observing and participating in that game with him has also refined my ability to.
Right. And I'm ashamed to admit, despite all the videos of yours that I've watched on YouTube, and you can always plug your channel during this conversation, you've mentioned your dog's name. I'm blanking on it right now. If you gave me enough time, I would probably.
I'm very disappointed in you. The name is Pickle.
Pickle. Yes. I thought of pickleball when you mentioned that. Well, I'm glad you were able to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, he was named before the pickleball craze gripped American culture in the way that it has.
Well, I look forward to meeting Pickle one day. And we thank you again for coming all the way from the Western United States to New York City for the Seller Velocity conference, which, of course, as always, was rewarding for hopefully speakers and attendees, despite being a grueling hell to put together. So we really appreciate your support and participation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I even have my souvenir, one of my souvenirs.
Yeah. Don't try to climb into that taxi. There's no motor in there, so there's no engine.
Noted.
Right. Anyway, things have moved on. That was 6 weeks ago. Feels like 6 months. Now we're all about Prime Day, of course. We're going to be posting this video 2 to 3 weeks before Prime Day, let's say, ish. My awkward segue from talking about Seller Velocity to this would be, first of all, are people so hyped about Prime Day that they are thinking about it and asking you questions about it in early May in any typical year, number one? Number two, have those questions become more urgent or serious in the 6 weeks since I spoke to you, Rock?
I feel like a lot of times Prime Day prep, despite the amount of years that somebody may or may not have been preparing for and going through it, it always seems to end up as more of a last minute affair. I think that there's other sort of parts of the Prime Day preparation that by necessity you have to do farther in advance that are more logistical, preparing deals, making sure that you have the inventory and all of that kind of stuff. And then for some reason, when it gets more to our expertise, that tends to be, just like it always seems to be, a little bit more of a last minute scramble, which I feel like I just want to reiterate again, for those either that haven't heard me say it or for those that have but need reminding, which is that one of the worst mistakes that you can do is start playing around with your listing too close to Prime Day, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Because in the event that you do something that gets your listing flagged or suppressed or suspended, then you are obviously going.
You'll be calling us, because people are already. It's a month away right now as we record. I know we're not posting this right away, but it's 30 days out, and we're already getting what you're describing. By the way, just to prove the validity of your comment, tinkering, too much tinkering, or tinkering in the wrong areas, and also you keep saying scrambling. People are scrambling, and it's like really they're trying to upgrade optimization on a listing now, like in later June.
There are definitely people that fall into that category. But, to be fair, there's so many parts of what you need to be responsible for. And outside of Amazon, that's not totally insane. If you're thinking of your own website and preparing it for a big holiday sale, or it wouldn't be crazy to be putting finishing touches on the creative.
Sure.
It's just that because of the way that Amazon functions, it's a little bit riskier to be saving those kinds of activities too close to such a major sale day. Because, of course, sometimes even when you're not doing anything wrong, you can find yourself in a pickle. The bad kind, not the good kind.
There's that word again. Yeah, no. Maybe some people overthink it and panic a little bit. The anxiety takes over. I'm wondering if people also in the lead up to Prime Day, like let's say throughout the month of June, maybe they get some declining sales and they start thinking like, well, if we're declining now, that means we're in even worse shape for Prime Day. So we need to panic and have Emma come in and rewrite the whole detail page for us, because otherwise we're going to take a bath on it.
I would say that that's probably it. Even just the pressure and expectation of, oh, wow, Prime Day's right around the corner. This is such a big day. Are we where we need to be? I don't know. I'm feeling insecure about this. Let me just read you everything. So I mean, really, I would say that's partly a sign of maybe a bigger issue when it comes to managing your business. And if you're making big decisions in a reactive way,
right,
that's where you end up seeing something that looks like a good idea that may not be a good idea for your business, or taking advice from the wrong person. It just makes you more vulnerable to making bad decisions because you're not really planning and setting those goals and then making the necessary steps to make those happen in a more measured, strategic way. So we don't necessarily have to get into all of that, but just as maybe a note for the people that are listening, that it's normal to feel that way, but it doesn't mean that you have to act on those impulses, and doing so could negatively impact your performance on a big day like Prime Day. And we see the same thing when it comes to the holidays and Q4, and people right after Black Friday are like, oh, that wasn't as good as I wanted, so let's change everything. And it's like, that might be
overreaction.
Or maybe we should start already thinking about how we can make next year better.
Yeah, and these are dense topics, of course. We don't have to go into all the particulars now, but your YouTube channel, like I said, I've gone through a bunch of your videos, and you do go into depth on a lot of these little slices of the pie. And it's one reason I end up watching them all the way to the end, because you're giving pertinent advice and details kind of throughout. And I think those are good primers and also good food for thought for people that for example, the video you do about, your product really well, but somebody new doesn't necessarily know it as well as you do, to think of it from their perspective. And that's kind of what you have to do when you're designing the detail page, right? Like, you have to kind of, what if this is brand new to you? What if you just did a search because this was something you needed, and this is the first time you're on this detail page for a product like this? It sounds so straightforward, but I think a lot of people are just so subjective about this that they can't back up and get objective enough to understand how to optimize properly.
Exactly. So part of that is psychology has a term for it. It's called the curse of knowledge. And what that means is essentially when we become experts or when we spend a lot of time on a topic, we forget what it's like to have a beginner's mind and really thing. And so it's not that we are intentionally choosing to ignore somebody that is unfamiliar with the product. It's just that we forget and have trouble thinking about what somebody who is not familiar with these concepts or this type of product might know or not know. And so it kind of just happens automatically. And so the first step is really just to bring awareness to that, because it happens to everyone. But once you're aware of that, then that is oftentimes enough of a reminder that can help you take a step back and really think through, okay, when somebody is a blank slate, what is also going to be most important to them? Because like another helpful sort of metaphor that I like to use is when you're meeting somebody for the first time, there are certain things you notice that make you like them or dislike them. And then as you get to know them, you get to know their little quirks. And those little quirks might be things that you really enjoy about that person. But when you first interacted with those quirks, either you didn't notice them, or maybe they would have even put you off. And so it's only by getting to know them more deeply that you like those things, that they notice those things. And so similarly with our products, you might spend all of this time optimizing the exact precision of the material and the measurements and all of these little details that to you are so important, but to somebody that has not yet interacted with your product or even with the other products that might have existed prior to yours on the market, they're not going to have any frame of reference for what that means. And so then once they get your product, once they interact with your product, then they have an opportunity to also become enamored with and appreciate those quirks. But from the beginning, you need to think about what matters most at this stage of the interaction. So you don't need to go in depth to all of these different things that, in depth about like care instructions or something like that. Maybe some general information about that is important, but thinking about, okay, if when someone's at the point of making a decision, they have not yet interacted with the product, what is the information that they need to know right now?
We're all guilty of the curse of knowledge. I mean, I do this myself. It's not that we're just bagging on brand owners.
Yeah.
Often I'm talking about account suspensions, listing takedowns, and I'm mentioning things that I'm assuming the listener already understands about the process, which is an assumption. You're assuming that they've been through it before, which maybe they haven't, or you're assuming that they heard about something because it's widespread and it's newsworthy, but maybe they haven't consumed that news item. I mean, it's something we all do.
Yes. I mean, even just in the vernacular, the vocabulary that you're using to explain certain things, you might choose to use specific language that makes a lot of sense to somebody that spends a lot of time learning the ins and outs of Amazon. And maybe they would even understand that if you just used a more generic term, but because you're using a specific Amazon term, it goes over their head. I'm experiencing that right now with training some new writers, and there's just all of this A+ content and image keywords and all of these little things that they may understand that on a conceptual level, but if I'm getting too heavily into using all of this Amazon specific vocabulary, then nothing that I'm going to say is going to resonate because they're going to get stuck on just not understanding the vocabulary and not being able to move.
Right. You think people lack the creativity, or do they just lack the time to spend on it? And that's what results in the knee-jerk reaction of, well, here's the product specs, just dump them on the detail page. And they're not thinking about the most enticing way of representing that info, or, I mean, it comes up with images too, not just written text. Are people just short on time and they're rushing it and they're spending time they should be spending on this in other areas? Or do they tell you like, well, how creative do we need to be? Because in this day and age with A+ content, videos now is the best time to up your game on the best ways to present your product to a new audience, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. And I would say all of the above. I think that there are people that don't have the time or don't have the knowledge and just don't even recognize that these are things that they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're running a business, obviously there's always more to do than time to do it. So there's that camp. There's the camp that is the creative doesn't matter. You know, they're the very analytical type that are
Okay.
all the SEO and the keywords and the sort of treat all the creative as not an afterthought, but just less important.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the category that they know it's important, but maybe they don't have the skill and experience and knowledge necessary to execute it in the way that it needs to be done.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So what else? I mean, you're getting questions from people every day without stealing from your YouTube content. What else are you getting in terms of questions about Prime Day that you're answering consistently, or that you don't get asked enough that you think is really important that you're giving people in terms of suggestions and tips?
From my perspective, really, preparation for Prime Day and what we do is really the same as what we're always doing.
Yeah.
How can you make sure to connect with the right customers in a way that's going to maximize your sales potential? And on Prime Day, there may be some added nuance of being able to look historically at keyword trends and see if perhaps there are some different keywords that you might want to integrate, or other types of little details like that you would be wanting to consider.
Mm-hmm.
But I have my do not disturb on, and
This is how popular Emma is. That's why we're honored and privileged to have her time today. Okay, we've all been there.
Sorry about that. It's really always just constantly trying to figure out how to differentiate from the competition, set yourself apart, connect with customers around what they care about. And there aren't really, like, I'm not a big...
Well, what about the people who are watching their competition more closely these days than they typically do, and they see a nuance, or they see an innovation, or they see something they're doing? Do they just run over to you and say, I know we already put this all together in advance, as we always do, but way in advance of peak sales period, but we have to make some last minute adjustment because I see what they're doing, and I think that's going to work, and I think we're going to lose sales over it? Is that how you spend the last couple of weeks right up until Prime Day, where they want to make those adjustments because they're watching what they're doing versus their competition so much more closely? Does that make sense?
Yes, and at the same time, that's sort of always the kinds of questions that we're fielding. And part of that comes from the fact that Amazon isn't great at enforcing the rules of how they want things to be done. So, you know, a question that we get all the time is, shouldn't the first part of your bullet be in all caps?
Oh.
The fact is that was how everybody did things for a long time, but Amazon came out quite a while ago and said, we don't want you doing this anymore. And yet still, if you go on Amazon and if you look at many best-selling products, that's exactly what you see. And so sellers are put into this conundrum of, okay, maybe they don't even know that Amazon says that you're not supposed to do it, because even just trying to find Amazon's rules about all of these things is not always the most obvious.
To put it mildly. Yeah.
So let's say that you do know this, but then you still are going onto the marketplace and you're seeing all of the successful products that are doing this.
Mhm.
And then you're saying, well, how strict really could they be about this? Because all these companies that are clearly not going under the radar are getting away with.
Right.
So those are the kinds of questions that we get all the time. And it can be from that, where it's more about like, what are Amazon's rules about how they want listings to be formatted, all the way to more of marketing decisions of like, but shouldn't we just have our title be a really long string of keywords and then carry that into the whole? And so when you're seeing companies that are doing those things and being successful, you're left scratching your head and trying to make a decision that's in the best interest of your company. And then when you add Prime Day into the mix, and then there's that heightened sense of importance and urgency and wanting to make it as good as it can be, that's where we kind of go back to the beginning of the conversation, where you start making changes in a reactive way that end up creating problems and opening up cans of worms that you do not want to open.
Yeah. Now, do you take insights from this time of year and apply them to Q4, or do you just have to say, nope, got to take it anecdotally, just one at a time, individual cases, and not necessarily make any assumptions based on Prime Day based on what you think Q4 will be about?
I think that Prime Day can give a lot of insights into the kinds of products that do really well. I think it can give a lot of insight into Prime Day is so reliant on your advertising strategy, having the lightning deal, of having really being dialed in with a lot of those things, that I would say that there aren't necessarily, from my experience, a lot of like listing trends that would be uniquely different in a way that you would carry those over. But I do think that it is helpful. And at the same time, our buying culture is becoming so increasingly fast-paced in terms of, we see these TikTok trends where it's not just it's not a season anymore. It may be a few weeks of a craze and then we're on to the next thing. And so there's just a lot of different factors to be aware of and at play. And so I think it's helpful to look at Prime Day to see what kind of trends are happening, what that's showing us about customer buying behavior, and maybe how that compares to other years. And just more broadly, really having a finger on the pulse of what's happening in our culture, what people care about, what they're interested in, how people are spending their money or not spending their money, and all of that.
Excellent answer. You nailed it completely, which is why you're such a good public speaker.
Thank you. Can I get a gold star or an A on my report?
I can say something like, Emma, Schermer, Tamir, everybody from Marketing by Emma. Take it away. What's the best way to reach you during these key moments of listing optimization strategy, key peak sales period like Prime Day and Q4?
Our website, marketingbyemma.com, has all of the information, whether you prefer to reach out via phone or WhatsApp or email. You'll be able to find it all there. We do also offer free listing analysis if you'd like us to take a look at things and give you some insights about what might be some of the low-hanging fruit or top changes that you can make to improve the quality of your listing, or if you would like us to take care of that for you, then we can definitely do that and would be happy to do that. And as you mentioned, I have a YouTube channel, Marketing by Emma, where I share a lot of content around very micro topics like how to create a great title on Amazon, all the way to broader marketing psychology and branding advice, so that you're really thinking about all the different levels of things that you need to create a phenomenal business that is going to help you achieve those goals that I'm sure you have, that we all have.
Yeah, those are my favorite parts of your YouTube. The marketing psychology pieces are what I find the most interesting, but there are also very worthwhile practical tips that you're giving throughout, I think, each of the videos. So,
Well, thank you.
I'll wrap with you now so I can go back to watching your YouTube channel. But thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. We always like having the best experts from all over the Amazon space on, especially yourself. I think you're one of the most frequent returning interviewees that we've had. So thanks again for speaking at the conference, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for hosting me, and wishing everyone a record-breaking Prime Day.
Happy Prime Day.